Well, President Donald Trump wants to put America first, but where does that leave the rest of us? In particular, how far is he willing to go to protect American companies? Well, since becoming president, he's held lots of meetings with US bosses at the White House, and now it's the turn of the US airlines. They're looking for protection from the Middle Eastern airlines. So what will he do? Azhar Sukri reports.
This Qatar Airways plane is setting a record for the longest ever commercial flight. And although travelling from Auckland in New Zealand to Dubai may be great for the airline, at 17 hours long, this flight may not be that super for those in economy. It is, however, the latest sign of the growing dominance of carriers from the Middle East. About a decade ago, if you'd wanted to fly between the east coast of the US and the United Arab Emirates or Qatar, you had 1 or 2 flights a day to choose from. Today, there are more than 24, most of them operated by the big 3 Middle Eastern airlines, Emirates, Etihad and Qatar Airways. That's according to a US lobby group working on behalf of America's biggest carriers. And it's a service those US airlines aren't matching. Companies like United, Delta and American Airlines say that the UAE and Qatar heavily subsidize their national carriers, giving them an unfair advantage, especially when it comes to flying passengers beyond their Middle Eastern hubs and onto other destinations in Asia or Europe. When Emirates recently announced a new route between Athens and Newark, New Jersey, the US lobby group representing the top 3 US carriers was furious. In a statement, it said, by flagrantly violating its open skies agreement with the United States at the start of the Trump administration, Emirates is throwing down the gauntlet. We look forward to working with President Trump and his team to enforce these agreements and protect American jobs, something that the Obama administration failed to do. The Gulf carriers have long denied allegations of protectionism.
There is no harm that our operations to America is bringing on all the 3 big American carriers. Quite the contrary. We are creating jobs in America, we are feeding into the American economy, and that we are giving businesses better opportunities to reach the globe, which the American carriers are not taking them at all.
The American carriers had tried to get the Obama administration to restrict the growth of Middle Eastern airlines flying to the US, but Obama didn't act. But with a new president in the White House who based his campaign on the promise to protect American companies from foreign competition, they are hoping to get a much more attentive audience. Azhar Sukri, TRT World.
And Azhar joins me here in the studio. Azhar, just to recap then, we've got the big 3 airlines in America, American, Delta and United, and they're complaining about the 3 stars coming out of the Gulf, Qatar Airways, Emirates and Etihad. They're saying they're getting unfair subsidies and support from the government. Are they being hypocritical?
There's certainly an element of that. If you look at what they're accusing the Middle Eastern airlines of doing, they're saying that over the years they've gotten about $50 billion worth of subsidies. The Middle Eastern airlines flip that right back at them to say that they get subsidies or government protection of their own indirectly in the form of immunity from antitrust laws, for example. They have been allowed to collaborate on code sharing, revenue sharing and cost sharing as well. So the Middle Eastern airlines say, you know, pot calling the kettle black.
OK. And the big 3 American airlines don't actually speak for the smaller ones who say we're very much in favour of the open skies policy. The foreign airlines are bringing in really valuable passengers for us to transport around the country.
Absolutely. Companies like JetBlue, Hawaiian, even the freight carriers like FedEx, for example, they've actually formed a coalition of their own called the US Airlines for Open Skies. And they actually say, you know, open sky agreements have been really good for them. They actually take all the traffic that comes into the hubs that these big Middle Eastern airlines bring into places like Newark and all that, and then feed them out to the smaller destinations across the US. So for them, it's actually been a really good deal.
Now, when Trump called this meeting, he said he wants to talk about jobs and he wants to talk about his plan to keep America safe. In other words, the travel ban that affects the 7 predominantly Muslim nations. What are the airlines making of this?
Well, one airline in particular, US Airlines CEO Doug Parker, he has actually not attended this meeting that's taken place today, reportedly, mainly because of a scheduling conflict. But last month, he did say, and I quote, "Crews, reservations agents and airport teams have witnessed turmoil in our airports, and that shows how divisive this order can be." So a certain amount of opposition there from one of the biggest airlines to Trump. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out.
Do you think that Trump is far more likely to listen to them and other lobbyists than President Obama?
That certainly is, I think, what the airlines are hoping for. You know, if we go back to everything that Donald Trump has been saying over the campaign and since he's been in power on issues like Mexico, China, the auto industry, you name it, he's talked about protecting American interests. So it sounds like the American airline companies want to strike while the iron's hot, really, before Trump maybe rolls back some of these things in the
he always
months to
said
come.
he doesn't want to reveal his hand. He wants to be unpredictable. Perhaps if he takes a hard stance here, he can extract more from them that way.